when we were growing up in school, the narrative was completely different, where it was that lack of understanding or not knowing what fasting is, the reasoning behind it, the spiritual improvement that is um, that is the aim for achievement by fasting, and then the lack of understanding of the physical benefits of fasting and the effects on your physical health, your mental health, spiritual health. Um, and now, because of so much research, that narrative has changed quite significantly. Now people are actively studying the Islamic process of fasting, and we have various other ways of fasting: intermittent fasting, you have heavy dry fasting, you have various other kind of surrounding regimes that people create for fasting, and there's so much more research into it. Now, with the Islamic way of fasting, it's been around for many, many years. It's always been this one kind of process, and I think it's important to mention that the ultimate aim is this spiritual benefit, this the spiritual health that we aim to better and achieve by going through the month of Ramadan, by fasting through the month of Ramadan. However, there are also added physical benefits, like you mentioned. And recently, one of the research that you talked about, kind of on cellular autophagy, that was quite groundbreaking in the sense that it was looking into how autophagy is basically where the body tends to kind of kill its own cells that are not required, or start this process of kind of removing or cleansing your body of unrequired cells and also required cells as well. But the reason why it's so interesting and why it's so important is because by default you're looking at conditions like cancer, where you have active differentiation of cells, where cancer is kind of spreading throughout the body, and suddenly you've got this study looking into the process of slowing that down, in fact reversing it. And so that was quite groundbreaking on itself. There's no kind of definitive conclusions from it, but there's heavy kind of strong evidence to suggest that this process not only slows down but can go into reversal as well. So that's one thing that is important to remember. And it's not the only study. There's a lot of studies looking into anti-cancer, anti-aging properties, and other effects of fasting, and particularly the way of fasting through Ramadan. I think, going back to basics, it in itself, the primary benefits that you see, physical benefits that you see from fasting, and there have been a lot of studies and research looking into this, is the effects on reducing things like metabolic syndrome. So that's basically a label for a group of conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. And they're the key kind of culprits in significant health disease. So when you get diabetes, it tends to affect mainly the small blood vessels in your body. So mainly you get kind of diabetic retinopathy as a complication. So the small blood vessels in your eyes, in your feet, your kidneys, and even your heart. And it tends to, if you imagine pipes, it tends to kind of weaken the walls of these blood vessels. And then there's other things like cholesterol buildup, where you get kind of blockage. And again, sticking with this analogy of pipes, you get blockage of pipes, and all of this stuff puts you at risk of strokes, heart attacks, and significant life-changing problems. And it's not like it's gonna these things put you at risk of death. They do, but the other added complication is you end up living with significant disabilities or dependencies on medications to look after your health. So there's this huge drop in your quality of life. So fasting in itself, a lot of research has been done to show that, there was one article looking at the level of cholesterol in young fit males prior to fasting and then after fasting. And you tend to find that, and there's been sort of recorded drop in cholesterol levels. There's been beneficial effect on reducing the chances of getting diabetes, so increasing insulin sensitivity and decreasing insulin resistance. So insulin, you need that sensitivity to have good control over your sugar in your body. So fasting helps with that, and it helps with various other things. And all in all, overall and broadly speaking, these conditions that we talked about, heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes and vascular disease, you find a significant health benefit. And of course, the most recent research surrounding cancer and the benefits on that as well. So overall, there are many different types of fasting, but the process that is described within Islam has been shown to be beneficial in multiple ways on your health as well.